Colleagues, greetings. This is Puji Budiono again from the Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia. We are privileged now to have my esteemed colleague, Mas Amri Avianto. He is the chairperson of the Masyarakat Penanggulangan Bencana Indonesia, Indonesian Society for Disaster Management.
Yes, that's correct.
Mas Amri, thank you for sparing your time with us. Could you
Pleasure.
just very briefly introduce what is your organization?
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Puji. The Indonesian Society for Disaster Management is an association of experts, practitioners, scientists, everyone who have passions on disaster management. This is a place for people to share their views, their concerns. We initiate critical discussions in order to have innovative solutions.
Now, being a society, you must have been engaging with the government as well as other sectors. Could you characterize the relationship between your organization and the government with regard to disaster risk reduction?
So we view ourselves as critical partners, where we are like we are here to support, to advance the disaster management or the disaster resilience agenda. We are working not just with the national government, but also with local governments, provincial, all the way to district and municipalities. But like what you mentioned earlier as well, we work with the private sectors, fellow civil society organizations, scientists, and everyone. What we hope is that, I think what our founding fathers or our funders has mandated to us is that MPBI is a place where people to gain knowledge, to acquire more informations, and then also to see how we can collaborate and work together. And I think the beauty of what we have been doing in Indonesia is to have that sense of cooperations and collaborations working together, especially during the pandemic era where we have limited resources, but we have reach across Indonesia. We have in our last event with the Disaster Risk Reduction Conference at the national level, we have more than 160 organizations all the way to the grassroots level and all with the national governments as well.
Right, now let's go down to something a bit more practical, Mas Amri. What are 3 or 5 services that MPBI is undertaking to facilitate that collaborative, working together and dealing with the common challenges like disaster risks?
Yes. So, like what we have been doing right now with the national government agencies, we are working with the delegations of Indonesia, helping in crafting the positions of the government of Indonesia on the GPDRR.
And bringing the perspective of civil society therein?
Absolutely. So beforehand, we have been doing more than 10 events collaborating with other civil society organizations to gain their perspectives, their views from DRR forums across Indonesia, with the media, with the scientists, and with every sectors to know what's the current thinking in disaster risk management, as well as what is our expectations on the way ahead from this GPDRR.
I think this is an exemplary practices where a country, a government, actually working with civil society and pulling together the posture of disaster risk management in the country to be presented to a global avenue like this, right? What about your work at the policy level? Do you influence the policies of the government on disaster-related matters?
Yes, so at the national level, we have been working, for instance, in many occasions. Of course, other people knows us as the initiator who created the disaster management law. Of course, that's with the fully support of the government of Indonesia at that time in 2007. But also right now we are working as, for example, with the BNPB on the current regulations on safe schools. We are also working with other organizations and also with BNPB on the cluster coordinations on the humanitarian operations in Indonesia, and also with other policies level like the Ministry of Village, looking at the village funds, on how at the grassroots level they can access disaster risk reduction financing. and BMKG with the early warning systems and education.
It's quite broad.
So
It's quite broad.
I think that's what our aim, to also see where disaster management is not just about with BNPB or sits with the disaster management sector, but also how we can reach with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Public Works,
different
education,
sectors.
with different sectors. This is what we learned from COVID as well. You need to have a whole government approach, a whole sector approach to tackle this emerging, cascading, and systemic risk.
I read from the literature, Mas Anto, that Indonesia seems to be one, if not the only one, who has a legislation on disaster that was pushed by civil society. Could you confirm this?
Oh, yes, we're happy to confirm this. Even the person that I speak with right now is part of the process as well.
I cannot say that. I cannot take the credit.
But we are very proud with, of course, the achievement of the civil societies. So this is something that we want to push. But also, Papuji, this is also something that is a challenge for us as well. Because right now we are challenged with a new risk, more intense and more frequent disasters, which calls with new strategy, new approach, and new thinking as well.
Right,
So
right.
that's how we have been very fortunate and very very fortunate to have the support in the almost 20 years ago. But right now it's time for the civil society organization to join arms, join forces again, and see how we can advance the policy decisions and how we can have more stronger sustainable resilience
Right.
in the communities in Indonesia.
Now let me bring you really at the center of conversation now. The Global Platform for Disaster Reduction finally gets out of Geneva. And Indonesia happened to be the first country for it, and Bali is the place. The question for you is, what does it mean for your organization, having this global event taking place in the country?
Yes. I think it's the second one, right? Because the Cancun, Mexico is the first one.
Yeah, I would say that on the global south, it's probably the first one.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, but it's still, it has very significant value as well.
Yes.
First of all, it's the first global platform that we are that is convened in the pandemic situation.
Right.
We are doing this with a combination between offline and online participation, and it's happening in Indonesia. We know that there are more than 3,000 disaster events happening every year in Indonesia.
Right.
People at the global level knows us as the laboratory of disasters. People learn about disasters in Indonesia.
From Indonesia.
From Indonesia, if they want to know about tsunamis, earthquakes, volcano eruptions,
and how people work together.
Exactly. So this is the center of the knowledge, and this is what we want to aspire to. The center of excellence. This is something that we want to bring, but also we also recognize the high value of collaboration and cooperation, cross-border cooperation between south to south, multilateral, triangular, bilateral cooperations. Did you know that Indonesia help the Pacific in building the early warning systems?
Sure.
Of course, you know.
Yes, I was part of that deal.
Exactly. We are part of the ASEAN region as well, and we have been doing a lot. And we know that learning from countries to countries is something that very effective, very valuable, and I think we have to keep promoting that.
Excellent. Now, last point, Mas Anto. I think in a couple of months from now, we look forward to the Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Reduction in September in Brisbane, Australia. If there are three things that your organization will take forward from Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia, what would that be?
Yes, that's a good question. I think the Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia is a very good evidence where people from across sectors, across groups, are working together,
Right,
and
right.
we know that the most at-risk groups needs to have the voice. They need to
They need to have a platform
They need to have a meaningful
Right.
participation.
Correct, yes.
This is a place where local communities can flourish, and I think the first message that we want to convey in the APMCDRR, what's happening in Brisbane, is the value of meaningful participations of the most at-risk groups.
Right.
That's
That's
we
the
think
first
is
one.
key.
What about the second one? there was a ministerial conference in Yogyakarta, and then this one, and then a bit to Brisbane. And in Yogyakarta, there's a lot of emphasis given on the local level practices. Do you think this is one of the things that, Rumah Resident and with your organizations will bring to Brisbane?
Yes, definitely. We know that through the discussions over the year, we recognize that resilience is local. So local level resilience needs to be promoted, where the communities needs to have that capacities, and then also what we have learned as well is collaboration works effectively when they are in the same groupings, right? So you have private sector groups all together, you have the media, you have the NGOs, you have the children groups, you have the women groups, and you have disabilities. These all have their own mechanisms. They all have what we have observed is that they are also living in their own bubble.
Right.
So our role as the MPBI is try to bridge the communication between these forums
to connect these islands of excellence.
So
right?
similar like Indonesia is an island state. So the problem is about connectivity.
Right.
So bridging communications and enabling discussions among forum, that is we think the key to move forward.
Excellent. So colleagues, it's really heartwarming to have young person like Mas Anto, right, explaining about the Indonesian society.
I already have gray hair.
I think it's a fashion more than anything. So, colleagues, thank you very much. Mas Anto, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'll see you in the next interview.